This is Professor Davis, and this is your topics checklist for Module 3 for Math 1650 College Algebra Online. In this module, we want to start in Section 1.7 on linear inequalities. Inequalities is the theme for this module. And I would suggest you start out with a review section, Section R.1, and review the notions of writing inequality notation, and in particular, interval notation. And you'll find that on ebook screen R.1-8. You'll see a nice table of a review of interval notation because when we solve inequalities, our solutions won't be just single numbers, but an entire interval of numbers. And so we want to review how to express those. So make sure you do that first. And then in example 3, we talk about solving linear inequalities. And so that often involves using the distributive property, transposing terms to get all the terms with the variable in it on one side, all the constants on the other. So take a look at those. And then we want to talk about solving compound inequalities, example 4. And in that example, there is somewhat of a middle side to the inequality, and then values on the left and right. So we want to take a look at how we solve those inequalities. And then the compound inequalities with the word or included. That'll be important for us later on, so make sure you look at example 5. And then finally, in section 1.7, you want to take a look at the homework to practice exercises. I think I may have put section problems 1 through 13 odd on your list of practice exercises, but I think you might want to try exercises 1 through 19 odd. That starts on page 43 of your summary book and ebook screen 1.7-22. So that's section 1.7. And now let's move along to section 1.8. And this is where we solve absolute value inequalities. So the key here is to take these absolute value inequalities and then turn them into linear inequalities. Then we can solve them using the techniques that we learned in section 1.7. So in table 1 on ebook screen 1.8-15, you'll see a nice summary on how to do exactly that. Take an absolute value inequality and rewrite it as a compound inequality. So in example 1, that starts out with an absolute value equation, so that those aren't inequalities, so that's a good way to start. And then we want to take a look at solving absolute value inequalities that involve less than or equal to. That's where we take an inequality and rewrite it as a compound inequality. And then I guess the most challenging ones are the ones where we have to solve an absolute value inequality with the greater than or equal to sign involved. And that's where we solve compound inequalities with or involved, so to speak. So those you want to pay particular attention to, like in example 3. And so for practice in that section, we want to do exercises 1 through 17 odd, and those start on page 48 in your summary text or ebook screen 1.8-13. Now finally, to finish off the chapter here, is this section that's very important for later on, polynomial and rational inequalities. Keep in mind when we solve these kind of inequalities, we really do not use algebraic techniques like we used in the previous 2 sections. We want to use this test value method. And the test value method is a tabular method that we can use, the numerical techniques to solve polynomial and rational inequalities. This method is demonstrated on ebook screen 1.9-6 and listed on ebook screen 1.9-18. So you'll see it demonstrated, and then you'll see it listed out what the steps would be. In example 2, there's an example of solving a polynomial inequality. That means by nonlinear, I mean quadratic fundamentally. And then we want to take a look at example 3 on solving rational inequalities. In other words, an inequality where one side is a fraction and that fraction contains variables. So in that section, we want to try exercises 1 through 17 odd, and those start on page 54 if you have the summary notebook. And for the ebook, that is on ebook screen 1.9-19. So you can go right to those screens and get an idea of what to do. So that's the topics checklist for Module 3.